Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I'm on a mission to go get possibly some grapes and some seasoning, some specific seasoning, that Japanese seasoning that I got only at Whole Foods. I haven't been able to find a Whole Foods in any route that I've gone. So it's the best time for me to go get some seasoning. I'm gonna grab two this time. I'm not even gonna play with it. But yeah, man, I feel pretty good. I want to talk a little basketball here. Of course, we got the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I encourage everybody to check out the video I made earlier on that. It was a blast to make. I did a little more recapping in that one than breaking down what I expected to see, telling everybody about what happened in the offseason as if you guys don't follow me closely. It's like I know the same people follow me like, dude, why are you talking like this? But you never know, you know what I mean? Sometimes at the beginning of the season, you just want to display that you have an understanding of what the path has been that led to the moment you're in, and maybe bring some people along that might be just starting your channel with the season ahead. So that's kind of what we're doing. This is day one, and we're just getting started. And I tell you, man, the Minnesota Timberwolves, I was listening to Laker Nation this morning, and they don't sound, well, put it like this: 3 out of the 4 people on the screen was not very optimistic that the Lakers are going to win tonight's basketball game. And I was laughing to myself because I know I probably wouldn't have catered to any more optimism at all. I don't like us against the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, based on what I've seen from us in the preseason and based on what I've seen from them as well. And just from what they look like on paper, the teams, they have a much stronger bench than us right now. As I've said many times, a good majority of the value that we have is wrapped up in 2 people, Bron and AD. And so Minnesota doesn't have a Bron and AD. What they do have is about 3 or 4 players that represent the value of one of those guys, right? So it's diversified into more depth. For example, if we were to quote unquote trade AD, I don't know why I put quotations there. If we were to trade AD, then you can get like 4 or 5 different players and make your team significantly deeper. Now, do you have that massive AD piece that has so much talent in one person? No, but you do have that talent represented in so many other people. And that's what a lot of teams have. The Lakers don't really have that. So when I see teams that have so much depth or a much better bench, I just know they don't have AD and they don't have Bron. Or they may have managed their assets a bit better, or may have gotten luckier as to where maybe they do have AD and Bron, quote unquote, but they don't. They found themselves being lucky in the draft. Or they, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Or they find themselves getting great contracts attached to them. So, or they hit it out the park with the D'Lo-like contract, whoever that would be. You know what I mean, that kind of thing. So management of your assets, getting lucky, a lot of those things come together, go hand in hand, put you in the strongest position to have a team that is really good, or if you do things the wrong way, have bad luck, you can have a team that ain't no good at all. And so that's why being all willy-nilly with trades and stuff like that, or doing what the Nets did and trading away superstars and bringing back, role players and not wanting picks, it's just the complete opposite of what a team should be doing with their assets. I think a lot of teams that have mortgaged their picks, including I think the Nets have actually went back and got their pick for this upcoming year when they traded away Mikal Bridges. They were able to parlay some of the Knicks picks to the Rockets to get back their pick. That's the type of thing that I think a lot of teams that have mortgaged their future need to be trying to do. I really think that. You want your own pick back, man. And you definitely don't want to trade away picks that have your name attached to it, your team's name attached to it in the future. You don't. That's why I just think that the Lakers are always on eggshells, because they're getting so much pressure to trade picks for players. I personally think it's a shot in the foot when you trade away your own picks, because at least if you have a bad year or if you have some injury issues, you can then shift your attention to tank mode and at least secure yourself a top 10 pick. If you have a bad season and you don't have your pick, you're giving that talent to someone else. Not only that, but the most valuable picks in the league are likely picks that look as if they're not going to be any good. So if you don't necessarily want to tank, let's say you're a team like the Bucks and you lose Giannis in the first game of the season, and maybe you don't want to tank fully, or you think that you can possibly trade that pick, that pick is going to be so valuable because everybody knows your team's not about to be any good. So having your own pick is so much more secure of an asset, not only to hold on to, but also to acquire from other teams that don't look like they're going to be any good in whatever that year is going to be. So for me, I just think that teams that have given their picks away, teams like the Clippers, the Nets, they need to go and try to get those picks back. I really believe that. I think it's in their absolute best interest if they can scrounge up the value to do so. That should be the number one thing that they have on their intentions, not necessarily to bring themselves talent, but to secure themselves the flexibility of being able to shift out of trying to win in a particular season to being able to tank that season and get the best valuable talent in the draft. And as you guys know, if you follow me, my whole idea about how to make my team the best it can be is through the draft. Because especially if you're a small market team, maybe the Lakers don't have that problem, but a team like the Charlotte Hornets, you're not going to have the best opportunity to get free agents. You're not going to have the most leverage in trade negotiations. Your best bet at getting all that you need is through the draft. Drafting properly, having that talent come to you, having their bird rights, and then from there, you can trade those players if you want to, or you got a future with those guys if they're really good, and all of that is how you really build up the equity necessary to be a good team. Foregoing those opportunities is counterproductive for a team that really wants to strive to be sustainable. If you want to go all in like the Phoenix Suns did, you can do that. Maybe you get lucky and have a guy like Kevin Durant wants to play for you. Hey, all the better. But most teams are not going to be willing to do that, and most teams are not going to have Kevin Durant knocking on the door. So these are the type of things that we talk about in the NBA. I just think a lot of franchises forego opportunities to be their best selves because they want a chance at a championship. I hear a lot of analysts say, yo, if you got enough and you just need to do one thing to trade maybe a few future picks to get over the hump, that's what you should do because it's so hard to get a championship. But it's much harder to get a championship if you continue to forego so much of your future. You have less likely to have more teams in the future that are really any good. Just because you want to make this team a champion, now you're foregoing 5 or 6 teams that could have been one trade away from being a champion. You see what I'm saying? In the future, now you're like 7 to 8 trades away from even being decent. 4 or 5 years down the road because you want to be so good right now. It's bad math. And because it's bad math, people need to stop suggesting across national airwaves that teams should mortgage so much of their future so that they can have an opportunity at just being good enough. Because being good enough may not get you over the hump. You may still roll an ankle, and now you're not good enough anymore, and you've done everything to put yourself in the greatest position to be quote-unquote good enough, and you still don't have a chance to win. You know, so the risk outweighs the reward in a lot of cases. And rarely does a team that does that really get the most out of their circumstances. Rarely. You saw it with the Toronto Raptors, where they were able to trade DeMar DeRozan and get Kawhi Leonard, and from there they were NBA champions. A lot of things went right for them. They hoisted the trophy. And they didn't give up really any future equity, so it wasn't as much of a risk as a lot of scenarios like this. But one thing I will challenge them to understand is now you're in a space where your team is doing real bad. And a lot of that trickled down from being willing to go all in for 1 year only to lose the player in free agency the following year, or even after winning the championship. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, they won a championship, but how far away are they from winning it now? And how long is it going to be before they're anywhere near a championship again? It's like, a lot of times people just assume that it's so difficult to get a championship that you just have to do this. But what they don't understand is that they're putting themselves in further distance from a championship ever again. Reinforcing the pessimistic look of how hard it is to get a championship. You see what I'm saying? So for me, I always want to preach, take care of your assets. Take care of your books. And, you know, if you want to go all in, know the risk. If you want to go all in when it comes to your team, know how many teams you could be punting down the road And you're going to want championship opportunities those years too. You know what I'm saying? Now, I understand the argument if you have that once-in-a-lifetime talent in his prime, and maybe you're holding on to like 5 or 6 picks, and you're not giving this guy an opportunity to win. That's a little different than what it is that my Lakers are dealing with. When I assess what we got going on, we've already mortgaged so much. And we have the Bron and the AD piece. So it's like, get us enough we can win. We can't because we put y'all together, and that costs us more than enough, if that makes any sense. And it's like, y'all are why we can't do it. So it's like, no, that's not the scenario the Lakers and teams like the Lakers can really apply to themselves, because at the end of the day, you don't have the picks to get enough anyway. It's incumbent upon those 2 stars that you put together to do so much heavy lifting in a championship situation. Not necessarily asking you to afford things that you can't buy. Buy things you can't afford, rather. So that's really what I'm saying. I think the team that the Lakers have specifically, we actually have some good contracts next to Bron and AD. I think we're doing better than a lot of teams when you look at it, like Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves, Dalton Connect on a rookie contract. Like that's better than a lot of teams would be doing in these situations. Maybe we might have muffed some things with certain other decisions, which kind of rolled us back into a space where we're not as good as we could be with those contracts next to us. Talk about Jalen Hood-Schifino's drafting instead of taking Cam Whitmore, Cam Reddish, for example, that situation, giving him a player option instead of having a free roster spot this year from his exodus. Those are mistakes. Maybe giving your mid-level exception last year to what's my guy name? Who's actually playing better right now, but last year was a waste. Gabe Vincent. Maybe you want that money going in a different direction, give you a little more power in a different area or two. So these are the type of things the Lakers are dealing with that offset the beauty of having Bron and AD and then fantastic contracts like Austin, Rui, and Connect. So it's like, yeah, we got some great stuff going on, but here we go, we got some stuff that's really bad going on. So it's like, when you put all of it together, it just balances out to be average. And this is why I think the Lakers' most important decision is getting rid of the stuff on their team that can't help them and replacing it with stuff that most definitely can. I think that's probably the bet. I was listening to a Laker analyst a few days ago. He was saying he was frustrated with the Lakers because they didn't bring in any vets. They didn't know where the veterans. And in most situations, and I do mean most, I'm not opting for veterans. I'm of the mindset that I don't believe that more wear and tear on the legs is a good thing. But in this particular situation, when I look at so many underdeveloped pieces on this Lakers squad being asked to play positions and roles that are just a bit more mature than they're able to display, and then I look at the fact that we have AD and Bron, it probably would have been in our best bet to try to make sure that we had a veteran or two in some role-playing situations, maybe some guys that I personally wouldn't want, but more so would be able to help Bron and AD with just a little bit of something, so that we're not relying upon JHS to actually play a role, so that we're not relying upon a guy like Max Christie to play, staunch defense against Anthony Edwards tonight. Like that's a tough situation. And then you look at like the fact that the Lakers also have Jared Vanderbilt, who is an important piece, but to be honest with you, you can't count on him to stay healthy. So he would be the guy that you ultimately want to put in these situations. It's a lot of problems for this Laker team, man. If he were 100% healthy, looking his best, playing to the utmost of what his potential could be, now you look at our team entirely different, because we have this lockdown guy that can play 3 different positions. And you got Anthony Davis next to him. It becomes a very staunch defense to try to go up against for anyone. But because you never actually can incorporate him into your plans because he's always hurt, you don't actually see that dynamic with this team as you look at it. So it's like, certain things are hard to assess properly. You get used to things not being there that are actually accredited to your team. just like Gabe Vincent last year. You know, what would our team look like if we would have had him to turn to and he would have been his best self? We assess our team without even considering him being present because he never was. But if he were, for which he should have been, then what does the vision of the team look like? So that's part of the problem with assessing the Lakers specifically. The injury issues. How much length do we have with AD and Wood and Vanderbilt and Jackson Hayes? Now Jackson Hayes' piece looks so much better because you're not asking him to do as much. He's like a plethora of what they call it, where you got so much good stuff. I can't think of how you phrase that, but that's what it becomes in regards to length. You got so much good length as opposed to relying upon Jackson Hayes. So I just want the Lakers to first get healthy so we can behold what it is that's actually there and assess it properly. But after getting healthy, then we have to get rid of some of the pieces that, when not healthy, we can't afford to rely upon. And that's an area of emphasis. I was also listening to that same person that I'm referring to say something along the lines of, he just felt like Rob Pelinka could have done more. He might have done the right thing in my mind by not doing anything. And it may be difficult to maneuver within this collective bargaining agreement. But some things can be done as opposed to absolutely nothing, And I guess my whole point in regards to bringing that up is to say I'm inclined to agree. I do think that maybe doing absolutely nothing might not necessarily been the only play. I think it was probably safer than some of the stuff we were looking at in regards to trades that could have been made or acquisitions that probably wouldn't have been cost effective or whatever. But I do find myself wondering, not being certain, but wondering if there was maybe some other stuff that maybe we weren't looking at that could have been possible. That's what I have to wonder as a fan. Having a full understanding of our cap situation, our pick situation, how difficult it is to make things work under this collective bargaining agreement, with all these aprons. I'm still inclined to wonder if we didn't give ourselves an out with the presence of all of that by not doing something that maybe could have been thought up, but since it was so many roadblocks, we just said, forget it, let's do nothing. That's what I have to wonder, if he's on to something when it comes to that. I have to wonder. Not to say that, like, if you were to come at me and say, okay, what could we have done? I don't know if I could come up with the damn thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I couldn't. But that's not necessarily my point. What I'm saying is, sometimes when you realize that there's not a whole lot that can be done, you do nothing. And sometimes if you are not giving yourself that as an excuse, you find something. And I wonder if that's what we may have done. It's just say there's nothing that can be done. And stop looking. And if we had some dynamo GM, would they not have found something? That's what I'm wondering. Just wondering. I don't know. But sometimes you can get deterred when you look around and say, man, there's so much up against us. I think my best bet is to do nothing. And then you stop searching for opportunities to do something that could be best for you. So I don't know. I think in the Lakers situation, when you have Bron and AD, you owe it to yourself to not allow yourself to stop looking for things that could help you around the margins. I guess that's the best way I can describe my point of view on that. You owe it to yourself to not say, all right, let me get some sleep because I just can't make a move. Maybe there is a move to make. You just need to forego that damn sleep. Maybe. So that's what I just wanted to throw out there. I don't know. Who knows, right? Far be it for me to say I'm certain. I have no idea. But I do think it's in the Lakers' best interest to keep looking right now for opportunities to get a lot better, man. And if something great happens to fall into our lap, then cool, because we did our due diligence to make sure that we found it. That's really my point of view, man. So, I want the Lakers to succeed this year. I want to be responsible with our assets too. And it's kind of hard to do both. If I'm being frank, it's kind of hard to do both. One side of the fence, you want your team to just keep looking. And then you find something that's not so great, but because you've been looking and you ain't found nothing, now it's like, all right, let's pull the trigger on this. Maybe that's the wrong way to kind of set yourself up too. So it's a lot of things that can go wrong. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing. But when you look at where we're at with so much that's underdeveloped, with a couple guys that's just not very good, I wonder if there's a way I can improve this basketball club if I'm a GM. Or if I'm another GM, I'm not saying, man, there's probably something he's not doing that I think I could have did here. You know what I mean? That I know would have kept us cost effective, kept us with the most of our picks, but it still improved this overall roster. So I just wonder. I would love to be a fly in a room full of GMs assessing this Lakers situation, because I just don't know what all is there to look at. I really don't. Obviously, as a GM, you have to adhere to the owner's intentions. So that might be part of what the roadblock truly is. Jeanie just not wanting to do certain things or what have you. But for me, let me just say what I'm really thinking. I want certain players off of this basketball club, and I'm not satisfied with them being here. No different than I'm not satisfied with trading away 3 picks for a role player. I am definitely not satisfied after what I saw in that Golden State game with the Lakers in the preseason just a few days ago. I don't want some of those people on this team anymore if I can help it. And so my thing is, I can't rest on that no different than I can't rest on the idea that we should be giving away all our picks for some role guy. You see what I'm saying? Certain things you just can't live with, that I cannot live with. And so that's what I'm expressing to all of you guys. There's something going on with my team right now, and I'm having a hard time swallowing. And that is the presence of some of them dudes. They got to go, man. They got to go. You can't be that bad, fam. Not even for a small amount of time do I want to see that type of bad ineptitude. We losing by 60 points, bro. No. And I think a lot of Laker fans feel that way. I've heard a couple of them articulate it that way too, and I'm just one of them. I don't think our team can win a championship, and I don't think it's because we don't have good players. It's because we're stuck to some ones that need to go. Really. And we don't always agree on who those players are. Because some of the guys that are playing really bad, I'm not ready to let go of. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Max Lewis, not really. But Cam Reddish, yeah, I'm about ready to say that him opting in is hurting our ceiling, man. If he's going to be somebody that we actually play real minutes, that's a real problem. Based on what he's been looking like over the last couple of weeks. It's not a good player right now. And so what am I supposed to say? Oh, it's fine because, maybe we can bear him in the back of the bench. What if we have some ankle injuries or something like that? Now we got to use this guy. One of the things that he does is play perimeter defense. We don't have a whole lot of that. So I may by default need to put him on the floor and deal with all his weaknesses so that I can have that perimeter defense until Vando gets back. I'm like, nah, man. If I move him, I don't have to turn to him. That's just something I can say I don't have. And that sometimes is what needs to happen when you really do have players that have certain attributes that you need to rely upon, but ultimately are not better for having them on the floor. And that is exactly what I'm concerned with right now. I'm legitimately concerned that our basketball team is not better for having that particular player out there right now. Now, maybe he can turn some things around. For all I know, he has the best game ever tonight. I would love for that to be the case. I'm always rooting for everybody wearing our uniform. Always rooting for our players. But when someone proves to you they're not very good, then it's about whether or not you're going to hold on to them or not. And at this point in time, I don't know that I don't see him being moved on as an addition by subtraction situation. Especially since I need that roster spot so that I can move up a guy that I do think is going to be very good, Quincy Olivari. Different type of player than him. Probably ain't going to be able to fill in for him in situations. But still, too good of a rookie prospect to be in the G League, in my opinion, right now. It's too good for that. So if I can shave off Cam Reddish and bring in Quincy Olivari, I may still need to do a lot of things because that's just more rookies, more unproven players relying upon one another. That's probably a bad thing. But at least I feel better about my overall talent on the floor. Reliable pieces that I'm going to have to be relying upon is what I'm trying to express. I feel a lot better about those pieces if I remove players that I don't think can give us much, who don't have much upside, you know. And I guess that's where I'm at with Cam Reddish, as I've said many times in the last couple of weeks. If I thought he could be taught more from here, like if there was a real development curve from here, I would treat him like Max Lewis or Jalen Hood-Schifino. But the fact that the man's about 30 years old and he's still making some of the mistakes that you see 21-year-olds make, that's why I'm like, yo, I don't see no reason to have this player, man, at all. That's where I'm at with that. Because there's no learning curve. Yeah, in theory, of course, you could teach anybody anything if they're intent. But when it comes to basketball players learning how to be competent basketball players, if you ain't figured this out in 7 years of basketball play, 8-year career, bro, I'm not trying to continue to invest in you when I do have so much that's unreliable next to you. And I got a bunch of young players as well. And I got the AD timeline, Bron timeline. It's like this is the absolute worst situation for that particular piece to not be a contributing vet, to not have his head on straight as it pertains to being a competent ball player on both sides of the floor. You just can't really afford that problem when I have so many other things to consider that could be described as problems. And so when I look at JJ Redick trying to use this guy and put him on the floor in regular rotation minutes during the preseason, that alarms me to say that maybe standing pat isn't what's best for me if he gonna use this guy like this and he's gonna play this poorly when he does. That's really where all this is coming from. And Jackson Hayes, to a lesser degree, same thing. Same thing. Like if I could live with the production they're providing me, or they look pretty solid, then maybe standing pat this offseason or giving myself a pass to say I can't find nothing else is acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, all things considered, that's acceptable. We couldn't do anything. We just got to run it back. But now you're telling me that JJ is going to want to use both of these people and they're going to look this bad when he does? Maybe the urgency for me to keep trying becomes a real thing. Salute to Kobe Minute that just passed about 3 minutes ago. But like, for me, man, I just want, and the problem is, furthermore, I can't move Cam Reddish further down the bench because now I got to use Max Lewis. Now I got to use Jalen Hood-Schifino. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, those guys are most definitely not ready. They're probably not better than Cam Reddish today. I'm putting up with them not being better than Cam Reddish today because I know they're going to get a lot better than Cam Reddish as I continue to work with them. But that don't mean I want to rely upon them and bury Cam Reddish on the back of the bench. You see what I'm saying? Because if I have to bury him on the back of the bench, then I'm moving them up. I'm moving Bronny James up. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, for this particular situation, based on everything I've seen in the preseason and what my mind's eye tells me about what we're going to see going forward if this continues, we got to keep searching for ways to move on from some of these dudes. And we maybe should bring in a vet. Maybe we should bring in a vet at the wing position, somebody we can trust to play some good minutes, hit a corner three-point shot, get to the line, maybe have a little explosiveness if he has some left. Somebody that can make it so that we're not forced to either play Cam Reddish or Max Lewis. You see what I'm saying? Maybe somebody like that. And maybe you say, well, that's just going to be Vando. We just got to wait it out. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer. But I'm telling y'all, man, this is bad. This is bad right now. Or you got to try to move some guards into this forward position to try to drown them out if you just refuse to play any of those people. which is what I think JJ's going to have to do. He's going to play Austin Reeves at the 3. He's going to likely play Max Christie at the 3. And we're going to have some 3 guard lineups on the floor and make us a little smaller than we're comfortable being. And that's just what it's going to probably have to be. Which, to be honest with you, if I'm being frank with everybody, I don't have a real problem with Max Christie playing a 3. I think he's probably built to be a 3 in some situations. Austin Reeves too. They're big, long players, so it's not as bad as maybe it would have been when we had Russell Westbrook and smaller players on the team. You know what I mean? 6'3" guys. These guys are like 6'5", 6'6" with nice long arms. They should be able to get away with being in small ball lineups without hurting the team. You know what I mean? As far as I can tell. But you want your pure 3 on the floor. That's what you really want. Your pure 3, you want them available to you. 6'7" guy, 6'10", 7-foot wingspan. You want that player available so that you don't have to turn to these underdeveloped guys, and that you most definitely do not have to play Cam Reddish any minutes, reliable minutes at all. That's what's on the line right now. Is how much of our not so good stuff do we have to play in meaningful minutes while we're waiting on these injuries to heal up? That's what I'm asking all of Laker Nation. How many meaningful minutes are we gonna be giving some bad players, bro? Let's just be honest, because that's the issue we got on our plate right now, man. So I don't know how many people agree with me. And listening to a lot of Laker Nation, I think a lot of people agree with me. It's not necessarily the end of the world, but it certainly doesn't look like a championship ceiling or even a playoff ceiling if we have injury issues further from here. God forbid Max Christie or Austin Reeves roll an ankle. Now we're really relying upon these guys. And that's just what makes you not want Rob Pelinka to settle. And so that's really what it comes down to. Rob, please don't settle. Because right now we're relying on some people to come back and be 100% healthy. And the issue with that is the guys that we're asking to be 100% healthy, they've had setbacks with the injuries that we've been waiting on. You know, Christian Wood, 2 knee surgeries, 1 off season. Vanderbilt, his foot injury was something that was lingering early in the season. We brought him back, and then he got hurt again after being back for 6 games. The young guy that we brought in from Toronto, his issues could be lingering and reoccurring. So how many of these guys are really reliable to stay healthy once you get them here? See what I'm saying? I don't think they're great bets to stay healthy. And so for me, I just think the Los Angeles Lakers may have to up their urgency for making moves so that these problems don't find themselves taking away from our win possibilities. You see what I'm saying? That's really my thing, man. If we can't get Vando back, or if he does have another setback and we end up getting bad news on him, if we do get bad news on Koloko, the Toronto guy, if Christian Wood does come back a worse player, now you're really in a bad spot. You know what I mean? So that is exactly why my pessimism is in place for the ultimate ceiling of this roster. I get it, we got Braun and AD, but it's too many problems in place, and it's not enough reliable multi-positional two-way guys on the team that can ultimately make up for it. Not effectively. We're demanding that we replace him 3, but he's actually a pure 4. Can't really ask him to play the 5. We've asked him to do that and we failed. So it's like his piece, for me, I wish could do so many more things than he's able to, because then that would settle us into rotations or lineup choices that allow for us to phase certain guys out that need to be phased out more likely. You can just simply play him 40 minutes a game because he can play 3 positions and guard everybody. If that were the type of piece that were, this is not the same conversation. If Gabe Vincent was a 6'7" wing that could play 3 positions, that's no longer a problem. If Bronny James was a 6'7" wing, you see what I'm saying? Like, we have too many guys that are stuck in a one position. Jackson Hayes cannot be a threat from behind the arc. So you need to play him at the center position. There's no way you're playing him any forward. You just got too much of that going on that strangleholds us to certain things that you need to not be able to be forced to use, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And the question is, if I were to give up 2nd round pick or something, is there a way I can sort all of that out a little better and that be the cost? And is that not worth it when I consider how many problems we have and maybe how close we are to fixing those problems if I do a certain thing or two? You see what I'm saying? When you see where that 6'7" wing can not only sort out one problem, but maybe 3 problems, then you have to weigh the price of what it takes to get that player and the cost of what it looks like if things go wrong when you don't. And make sure that you got those price tags locked in your mind as you're trying to assess what should and should not be done. You see what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, certain stuff shouldn't be done. But if you look at the different problems the Lakers have and you try to fix each and every one of them with a trade, would it not be more cost effective to just get an interchangeable piece that can fix like 3 of those problems with a trade, if that's possible? And wouldn't that be worth a 1st rounder or worth a 2nd pounder or whatever the case may be? Like, this is the type of critical thinking that is kind of lost in the conversation a lot of times. It's lost. Assessing just how expensive it is to let these problems sit as they are. That's hell of expensive, if I'm being honest with you guys. So that's something that needs to be said, you know. I think that I've been critical of being flexible, I guess is what I'm saying. I've been critical of the idea of being flexible as it pertains to our picks and what all of this means if we do the wrong thing with our assets, and how far away we are from being good enough to where it doesn't really make any sense to do certain things that can make your team a little better, because you still won't be good enough to win a championship. And I'm not losing sight of that either. That too needs to be worked into the equation. If what we're doing, fixing these problems, doesn't make us good enough, and we end up giving away future assets that we really are going to need down the road, when some of these problems may even be worse or whatever the case may be, that needs to be assessed just as equally. And so this is not an easy job. That's what I'm trying to express to y'all. Being a GM, it's not an easy job, especially when everybody's screaming for you to do something without actually having all of these things in their minds. You're responsible for having it in yours, though, if you're the GM. And that's why you get the big bucks to do it, man. That's really what it's about. But it's a fluid situation. That's what I know about GMing for certain. What you thought was fine, you could live with 2 days ago, now the season's starting and you start seeing what stuff looks like, you may find out you can't live with those things, you know, and that's kind of where we're at. Preseason has given us some data that made me think, I ain't gonna be able to live with some of this stuff that I thought I would be able to be comfortable with. Jackson Hayes going into this season with this usage rate, I ain't gonna be comfortable with that. I'm not at all. Especially now that we're even more likely to rely upon him because we shaved off Colin Castleton. Not that I wanted to play Colin Castleton those minutes, but it's just like we don't have as many options at the center position. We're waiting on Koloko. You know, something I'm thinking about that not really hold any credence, but I've just been thinking about it, so I figured I'd throw it into this video. But it's not as relevant as some of the stuff we've just been saying, so bear with me. But as we're waiting on Christian Koloko to come back from whatever the circumstances are, I'm assessing how we're willing to do that for him, but weren't willing to do that on draft night for Cam Whitmore 2 years ago. Everybody was scared off by Cam Whitmore's circumstances as it pertains to his health on draft day. Even though he's a literal specimen of a man who could dunk on anybody at any given time. More likely to be able to heal, in theory, just based on how much stronger he is and younger he is than a lot of people. All right? We weren't willing to take a chance on him at 17 when he was the 5th overall best prospect because we were worried about his health. But we're willing to wait on Christian Koloko. Now, I know that there is a strong argument that I was able to provide myself, which is why I don't think this is relevant. It's like that's nuance because we really need a center, and a lot of things have to do with the AD piece and how much a center or two could help him stay healthy and move to the 4. So it's much more of a pressing need than establishing more powers forward, small forward, shooting guard, dunkers and stuff like that. Maybe you just simply need this piece a bit more than you would need Cam Whitmore in theory. Weighing that against Jalen Hood-Schifino and your need for a point guard at the time, and all that came with making the decision to draft a point guard for last year's roster and maybe even future rosters makes a lot of sense. So, like, I'm not. The thought is a simple one, but I'm not a simple mind. So it's like I can totally see why this is a minute point. But I do think it's something that a lot of people are probably going to be thinking about. And so I figured I'd let y'all know I've been thinking about it too. Like, in a nutshell, if I weren't able to see so many different angles, I would really be irritated with that. Like, you're trying to tell me we can wait on this guy, but we couldn't wait on that guy, and that guy is so much better and would have been so much more helpful for our future if we would have just drafted him instead of Jalen Hood-Schifino, who ultimately we now know is not very good at this point and probably won't be very good in time for Bron to really use him as a player that can be most utilized, or whatever the word would be. Can't really get the most out of that kid until well after Bron is likely gone. Do we not find ourselves frustrated with the idea that we're waiting on a backup center whose health is probably far more risky than Cam Reddish's, or Whitmore's would have been, rather? Far more risky. That we let 2 prospects go, 2 prospects that I'm not necessarily in love with, just to continue being in the running to get this player. And the prospects were Colin Castleton and Blake Hinson. We let both of them go so that we can stay in the running for a guy that may not be cleared, but we wouldn't take the 5th overall best prospect at 17 because we were worried about his health. And in turn, felt confident that drafting a 20-year-old point guard that had very limited quality to him, very limited attributes to him, was what we must do. It's like this type of line of decision making is what I think people are very critical of, and I think rightfully so. I really think it's rightfully so. So, yeah, man, Rob, that's what it is, man. One has to second guess certain things that you've been choosing because we're now seeing how it's turning out, and it just ain't really lining up that great. And I know you got a lot on your plate, as I've already articulated, but like some stuff we don't want to overthink, we just want to simplify. And so that's really what it comes down to for me. A bit frustrated as a Laker fan. I try to see as many angles as possible. I'm sure there's more than what I can see. But again, in being this way, one has to know how much good can come from just simplifying thoughts as you assess so many different things. Super duper athlete comes my way, draft him. Yeah, I know I got a million other things that come along with taking a point guard right now, but draft the video game player. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. It's just as important as seeing all the angles. It's simplifying the thought process and just taking the better possible. BDF 44, I thank you all for watching. I'm out.